Hi, everybody. Jerry Katz, President, Entrepreneurs Organization, South Florida. I felt the duty to send this video into the chapter to try to share some of my personal experiences when it comes to crisis and things of that nature, and to hopefully uplift the chapter, and so together we can focus on some positivity here, even though this is an extremely difficult situation for all of us. So I just want to explain a few things and share some experience. I'm going to be 50 years old this year. I've been in EO 11 years, and I've seen 3 to 4 crises in my career in business. I can tell you it started when I was on Wall Street in my late 20s. I was fortunate enough to make over $1 million around 27 years old. And if you recall, there was a tech bubble back then in around 2000. In 6 weeks, I was wiped out. Started with nothing, done. Within 8 years, I rebuilt my net worth to 5 times that, and I adapted each time through crisis and went forward. The second crisis was one of my businesses is multifamily real estate, commercial property, things of that nature, was 2008, 2009, a global economic meltdown. I too survived that crisis. And most recently, the crisis that you're most familiar with was the Bahamas crisis that I helped assist in. So did this chapter with about 40 to 50 member leaders. So let me tell you a couple learning events that I have from crisis. There are 4 big takeaways here. 1, be positive. Number 2, you have a goal in mind, which is survival at this point. Number 3, information. Very important. Information, how much, too much, when you're getting it, and so on. And then adaptability. In a time of crisis, what we need to understand is it constantly changes. Every 3 to 4 hours, you have another event that can change the course of something, right? When we were going to the Bahamas and sending a cruise ship over there, the government said we couldn't do it, but we prepared to do it. By the time 3 hours came, they allowed us in. I can tell you every 3 to 4 hours, the situation changed on us. We had a plan to go one direction, it changed in 3 hours. So during the time of crisis, important to understand that information is not always accurate. It's sometimes fake, it's not good, or even if it is accurate, it will change, right? So the point is Colin Powell says, if you have 30% of information to make decisions with, it leads to chaos and fear and panic. No way to strategize. If you have 70% of the information, you can make clear, quick decisions, strategize, and things. So an important factor that I learned is crisis is like driving in the fog. I have about 4 or 5 feet in front of me that I can see. That's it. And that zone, every time I move forward, it changes. New information. Be careful. Some of it's real information, some of it's bad information, and sometimes it's a good idea to cut off all information and focus on your goals and your adaptability. So what happens in that fog, what if I make a right turn and all of a sudden I'm off the cliff? What if I make a left turn and all of a sudden I roll up the mountain? Or the point is you have to be critical on decision making in a lack of information and which information you're using to make decisions. You have to focus on the goal in mind, which is survival today. Survival for the business and then growth of the business. So I hope that resonates a little bit with that. Positive, goal, information, adaptability. Now, let's go into how I survived those previous crises. One is a defensive mode and one is an offensive mode, okay? So on the defensive mode, today, in my experience, the biggest thing I've ever learned during a crisis, during the bank crisis, during this, is to have a defensive position prepared immediately. That defensive position means hoarding cash, because cash is king in any financial type of crisis. King, right? The second thing we have to do is cut expenses, right? Because if we have too high of expenses, then we have no cash. Cash leads to sustainability in this situation. So cash, cut expenses. On Wall Street, there's an old saying, winners know when to take losses. Sometimes emotions will keep you in that crisis. Keep investing in that crisis. Try to save the day. Try to remove the Johnny Bravo emotion. Cut expenses, hoard cash. That's one defensive play. One more experience on the defensive side is during the last few crises, especially the big financial crisis, your landlords, your banks, your vendors, your credit card companies, all of those bills or expenses are negotiable, right? They're just as flexible as you need them to be. You'd be shocked because the landlord doesn't want to lose all his tenants and the banks don't want defaults on loans because then they can't lend. You'd be shocked how your business partners and vendors and banks and all that stuff are willing to negotiate. There's a million strategies on those things. And again, this is part of the cutting expenses and hoard cash position. Remember, defense, offense. All right, now let's go to the offensive plays. Adaptability. All right, adaptability is the key. If you went to the EO Nerve conference recently, there was a great speaker. He talked about AQ, adaptability quotient. He said that IQ will be replaced by artificial intelligence. He said that EQ, emotional intelligence, we still need it, but AQ will be the leader of business in the future. It will be the ones who can adapt the quickest to the technology changes that will disrupt us will survive. Well, guess what? This event will speed up, and it will speed up that whole thing about adaptability. So what do I mean about adaptability? This is the offensive strategy on your business that you must take during a crisis, right? He gave a perfect example. There's a comedy theater. The comedy theater got shut down right now, out of business. They can't carry it for more than 2, 3, 4 weeks. Who knows if it's going to close? What do you do to adapt? Defense, hoard cash, cut expenses. Number 3, adapt. All of a sudden, the comedy club can become an app on the phone. You can sign a couple contracts with comedians and so on. You launch the app within a short period of time. We have facial recognition technology that for every time you laugh, 10 cents. Charge you 10 cents. Charge $5 for the app, recurring revenue per month, and of that nature. So immediately, if you have a high IQ, adaptability, and crisis, you are able to shift a theater business, a comedy theater, into an app that's scalable, paying you revenue with new technology. So this is what I'm talking about right now. I want you to know, in my experience, when crisis comes, it's a giant pressure washer, right? It's gonna right now eliminate businesses that were weak already to begin with. It will eliminate businesses that cannot stand to hold the cash, that get too emotional, don't know when to take losses, things of that nature. And it's going to be a pressure washer to wipe out the weak businesses. Being highly adaptable today will basically ensure the survival of the future. Now, what are some other things you can look at in your business for adaptability? I have 2 different businesses, real estate and insurance. So right now is a platform for me to recruit salespeople to insurance with recurring revenue, for example, because I know I have a captive audience for the next 4 weeks. And I know that one of our biggest complaints in South Florida is we cannot get good staff or employees, right? Well, guess what? There's a lot of unemployed, fantastic salespeople out there whose businesses are shut down, sitting around. So I immediately will leverage that to get more employees and staffs. What's another thing you can do? Take a look at your business or your service. Maybe your business or service can go to a technology platform. Maybe your ideal client in this previous crisis is not your ideal client anymore. Maybe your service can be, or business can be service to somebody remotely who's in a different client. Your ideal client may change here. You may need a new marketing strategy. You may need to do in-home delivery. The adaptability, quick here, will ensure your survival. And in the end, all the other businesses that get wiped out, you will be the leader in this. Sir Isaac Templeton, greatest investor of our time, he always said these 2 things. At the time of crisis, when there's blood in the streets, is the time to adapt and opportunity exists. At the time of maximum optimism is the time to sell and exit. We rode an 11, 12-year wave to get to this point. So the point is adapt. We are EO members. We are entrepreneurs. This is the time. There is opportunity all around you. There is no better time to be an EO member than this. I'll give you a quick scenario on the enemy, the coronavirus. Today I was on a global call. There was representatives on those Zoom calls, which you should be joining, from China, from Italy, from the Netherlands, from the US, everywhere. And what I've learned is the enemy is identified. When we were in the global economic banking crisis or in the stock crash in 2000, we didn't know who the enemy was. Was Greece going to collapse? Was the debt going to kill the economy? Was Europe going to collapse? Was South America's debt? Every day there was something new. How many house foreclosures? It took years for us to get proper information on foreclosures, global debt, national economic interest rates, all that to come out of that. With the coronavirus, we know the enemy. The enemy is the coronavirus. In China, they're 2 months into the process, and the experience here that I got today is they are starting to return to normal. There are vaccines on their way. There are medicines on their way. Social distancing was the best practice. We have the strategies. We know what's happening. In China, they're starting to have face-to-face meetings. Traffic jams are starting to come back. So the experience that I want to share with you is during those other crises, or a crisis like the Bahamas where you're faced with the unknown of when a hurricane is going to hit, at least today, we have this enemy identified, and it's a war against coronavirus. And the media, believe it or not, with social distancing, are using best practices to fight this, and we are preparing as we speak. So that's one bit of good news, right? And I would not be able to share those firsthand experiences unless I spoke to those EO members as we did today in China, who gave us best practices. There is no better time to be an EO member. Right now, my forum, we're shifting to weekly protocol meetings. They're only an hour on Zoom. During crisis, we are brothers and sisters. We created EO, right, to be the most influential group of entrepreneurs in the world, to engage leading entrepreneurs to lead and grow. This is the time that you lean on me. This is the time you lean on the chapter. This is the time you lean on your forums, and you will survive this crisis. That's it. There's no better time to be an EO member. The other businesses that will get wiped out in the power wash, they don't have what we have, and that's each other. With unity, experience sharing, learning, and weekly, my suggestion on those forum Zoom calls, you will survive and we will thrive. You will survive and we will thrive. I love it. If you need anything, you reach out to me personally. If I can help in any situation, I'm here for you, just as your member leaders are, your forum, and this chapter. There is no better time to be strong with EO. I love you all. Keep your families safe. Keep everyone safe. Keep our community safe. God bless you. God bless EO.